All right. Well, welcome to the Friday morning edition of MVP Real Estate Podcast. We're here with Nick, and you told me the last name. Can you say it one more time?
It's Narbutovskih.
Narbutovskih.
Mm-hmm.
He is now a father of 3 with a little newborn, and numerous other things that he has already told us about that I want him to share everything, share the gamut, show us how you do it. Because I think of myself as busy, but from what you just told me, it'd be hard to keep up with everything you got going on. So we're going to kind of jump into it just how we usually do. With Nick, tell us a little bit of your background of let's stay where you came from, because I feel like we're going to have a whole nother segment of like, all right, what are you doing now? So where'd you come from, Nick, to get you to where you're at?
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. First of all, thank you guys so much for having me on and making the time. I really enjoy all of the aspects of the podcast. So, where did I come from? So I grew up in Washington State. This is not going to be a full life story or anything, but Washington State, from when I was around 6, my mom was a geophysicist. So she worked out at the Hanford nuclear site, doing groundwater monitoring and cleanup for all of the nuclear waste products that are slowly leaching into the groundwater up there. No big deal. So there's that. That was kind of my upbringing, was with just her and me. Did a lot of ski racing in high school, but I always wanted to be a pilot. So that was like, since I had gone to an air show when I was 4, I still remember the F-16s coming over, stage center, just full afterburner, because they could do that in the 80s. There weren't any rules.
Right.
So I went to the Air Force Academy for college, graduated in 2008, and then went to pilot training in Del Rio, Texas, which is a wonderful town if you like to fly airplanes, because there's nothing around it. So no issues with airspace. And then I went right into Special Operations Command for flying. So I've flown there my entire life. I had a short stint in New Mexico for about 4 years, also flying for them. And then Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama, where I taught at the Squadron Officer School for a while. And now I am back in Florida. We bought a house, which was like one of the only houses available. So I am involuntarily getting to know remodeling from a very personal level. And I'm also writing a lot. So my first novel comes out in about a week and a half or so. And I've got a website going and like all kinds of other, irons in the fire for that. So, yeah.
Congratulations.
Man, is there anything that you have thought of in your life that's been presented to you where you're like, I don't think I can do that? Because I feel like you've hit every aspect of awesome.
Well, so that's the thing, is like everything. That's the first thought, is like, I don't think I can do that. What really matters is what you do after that first thought. And I found that, that approach is probably the most valuable thing that I've taken away, is like, yeah, everybody thinks they can't do it at first, and that's fine. That's normal. But, what do you do next?
I like that. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. Do you know where this is off topic a little bit. Do you know where that seed started from? Was that your mom? Was there another influence that just like tapped in when you were young?
So, my mom was a huge influence on me, obviously, single parent style. And so she was everything. She was mom, dad, aunt, granny, everybody. But she set a lot of conditions, I think, that I was really fortunate to have. I don't want to dive into the huge discussion about privilege, but I absolutely did have a very privileged upbringing. And so I want to acknowledge that. But I think the thing that really, if I had to pin it down to one moment, one catalyzing piece, would be my ski racing coach in high school. His name is Rick. He's, a gruff old Irishman. Didn't mince any words. He swore a lot. Kind of the antithesis of my mom. And so when you're ski racing, one of the big things is you got to keep your hands up. It affects your body posture and your weight position and everything else. And it really just kind of like makes a difference between somebody who skis for fun and excitement and somebody who's, a professional ski racer. And I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I thought, I can't do that. It's too hard. And I remember going down a training course, and he had his little video camera out, and he would video us every day. And then we'd turn around, we'd watch it right there so you could see what you did wrong. It was like 4 runs in a row where I had my hands down around my waist and I wasn't doing it. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, you got to keep your hands up, 4th time in a row. And he was like, do you even want to be here? Do you even want to do this? And no one had ever asked me that before, because it was just like, yep, getting in the car, doing the thing we always do.
Yep.
And yeah, so the next time I got up to the top of the course, and I don't know if Nike had coined this phrase yet, but I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it.
Yep.
And like, whatever the consequences are, we'll figure it out. Cause it's a little more scary. You're going faster, you're leaning into the hill, which takes a different mentality that I didn't think I had at the time. And I did it. I got all the way down the course. It was not pretty, it was not the best race run ever, but I managed to keep my hands up. And so that was like, okay, I now have done something that I didn't think I could do. And it kind of just snowballed from there as far as skiing, and, that kind of permeated the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
It's amazing how one person can really change your life without even really knowing that they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Rick was, he coached the U.S. women's downhill team for a while as well. And so he was kind of, in his, I don't want to say retirement job, but he loved it. He would go out there, he'd ski every day, but he didn't change the way he was for anybody, which, take that as you will. It wasn't, always smooth sailing, but he had his principles and his ideals, and he stood by them. And I think that was really what made him a great coach and a great role model, to be honest. So,
yeah. Awesome.
No, it's one of my things. Like, I've got 3 boys at home. I'm trying to get them into athletics because I know, just like yours, my story, like my mom did a lot for me. My parents did a lot. But my key influencer was my football coach in high school. And not on the football field, but he also did our weight flex, our weight training gym class. And that is where I learned, like, I'll call it discipline, because you'd have 30, 35 people in a class, and the first however long until it took you to pick it up was, weights. And if you don't have weight, you don't have a grade. But you basically start squatting with the broom pole. And until you get your technique absolutely perfect, for 3 reps of 10, you don't touch a weight. And you do a bench press with the broom until you get your elbows and your shoulders right. And he would sit there relentlessly. And in high school, I was like, you cannot focus so much on this. You're driving yourself insane. And I didn't get it until I looked back, and I was in college playing baseball. And the things that we were doing just came, they're like, yeah, this is how you do it. I learned this like 5 years ago. And everyone's still struggling with it. And I was like, okay, I can see him pushing us then to get it over with and just make it simple. Like, all these technique things, difficult if you don't do them, but once you do them over and over, they become simple, and then it moves you on, and you can excel so much faster later on.
Memory then at that point, right? I mean, you've trained your muscles and you've trained your body so much that to do for you.
Muscle memory and mental memory.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that I was keying in on when you were telling that story, is that mental piece, that attitude, which I think is so huge to success in general. And it's not necessarily like there's a secret to it. It's just something you have to build over time, and you have to pay attention to. So something I've really been into. I'm going to age myself out here, but for the last 10 years or so, has been like the idea of reflective self-practice, which is a really complicated way to say, like, why are you the way that you are? And just like, think about that, right? Whatever you need to do. Some people like journaling. Some people like to go on a long run at the end of the day with no music and just like, stew with their thoughts, whatever it is. But being able to build that mentality of, why am I the way that I am, and am I the way that I want to be?
Yes.
Is its own skill, right? And it applies to like everything. So
it does. And that self-reflection is big.
You guys are going to make me like sit down after this and like have a little powwow and really like zen out and like put my thoughts in order.
I was just reading, listening. It's an audiobook. But they were saying if you ever come into one of these impasses where either you're not aligning with what you want, where you want to be, or you're feeling some sort of knocked off your path, to simply write down your goals, like your top 5 goals for the year, and then your top 5 goals for maybe your life or some extended period. Don't read them to yourself. Have somebody that you respect and like hold in high regard read them back to you, because having them read them back to you, hearing it, like for some reason, and I don't know the mind as well with my psychology background, I don't know it that well. Something clicks where it impacts you a little bit more, just having somebody read it back to you.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a saying that an oath made in public carries a lot more weight than one made in private.
Yeah.
So I know what my date night with my husband's gonna be tonight. We're gonna take down our 5 goals and we're gonna read them to each other, and then we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah, just you guys are gonna see your insecurities just like drop, and you're like, okay, here it is. Someone else knows my goals. It's gonna be scary, I'm sure, because I thought about it and I was like, is this something me and Ari want to do? And it was like it was a thought.
Well, my husband and I already kind of have like balls up in the air that we're throwing up and kind of seeing which one we're gonna catch, if we're gonna catch any of them. So maybe putting it on paper can make it a little bit more real, and then we can really sit down and be like, which ball are we gonna really throw up, and are we gonna aim when we throw it up? Like,
right.
I think the key there you hit on was putting it down on paper. And I've noticed this just from when I started writing. I started writing when I was doing my my second master's thesis, which was on the we call it fuzzy side, just because there's no math involved, but it's military operational art and science. But I thought I had these really good ideas, right? I thought I'd read the material and thought about it and come up with a conclusion and like, all right, this is great. And then I put it down on the paper and I'm like, well, that could be better. All right, let me just redo that. And then like when I show it to somebody else, like that's when like the holes actually appear. Yeah. Because we all, you put somebody else's biases and lens and paradigm onto your thoughts and ideas, and all of a sudden it goes from your thoughts and ideas into the thoughts and ideas.
And they're like, oh, get the eraser out. Let me erase that little part. Let me add in a little bit there. And yeah.
I listen to Tim Ferriss, the podcast, all the time. And he just had an episode where he referenced his 4-hour work week, which was like his staple book. I don't know if you've read it or not, but when he went into the publisher, he had it as, I think it was 8-hour work week. Mm-hmm. Oh no, he had a 2-hour work week. And the editors said, no, that's not realistic. And he's like, what do you mean it's not realistic? And he's like, no one's going to buy it if it's a 2-hour work week. They're going to think it's a scam. We're going to make it 4. Mm-hmm. And Tim was like, okay, because I don't know if that makes it any better, but sounds good. But that's kind of the thing where like he brought the ideas, and then the editorial world kind of took it and they put their little 2 cents in. So I want to segue into your book that's coming up. You said in 2 weeks?
About a week and a half. Yeah, we just finished the cover jacket yesterday, which I'm super stoked about. So it's good. It looks like a book now. I'm super happy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And a book is not an easy thing to do. If we can all remember when we were in school having to write a 5-page paper and how taxing that was. A book is a big deal. There's a lot of things to check off before it goes into production. So kudos for getting to that stage. Can you give us a little background about your book? What is it about? How was the process of building that, and how did it come to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. Appreciate the nod there. This was one of those projects that sort of took on a life of its own. So I mentioned I started writing a lot when I was doing my master's there, and I ended up writing about 90 pages for the master's thesis. And I found that, I could actually write pretty quickly. I'm what they call a draft horse. So case in point, the first draft of my manuscript was 80,000 words, and I wrote it in about 3 months, just like crushed through it. That's not the whole process, right? There's more to it. But when I started all right, I'm going to start writing to like end, it was pretty quick. But it all started when I started writing short stories, because I love science fiction, for one thing. Going back to that, growing up in Washington State, I used to take, as many science fiction like paperbacks as I could find around the house in a plastic bag down to the used bookstore, because you get half price credit. And I'd just recycle that and see how long I could keep that going. And then I'd go wash some windows and get $10 more and then go back. And that was like my summer. And I always loved the way that science fiction can take a universe, a world that like has never and may never existed, and still reveal truths about the world that we live in today.
Yep.
Whether it's personal truths, subjective truths, objective truths, if you get into the hard science fiction with the physics and everything. And like, I love that about the genre. So I started writing short stories. I got my first one published in Over the Horizon, and then it got picked up for republication in Metastellar magazine, which is an actual like science fiction magazine. And I was like, that's neat. That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
So yeah, I started talking to the folks there, and they had a writers group that met every Sunday on Zoom. And then I had an idea for another short story, which was going to be, I wanted to take on some of the things that I was seeing unfold in society, which, good science fiction will do that. Social issues and progressive, what ifs, that kind of thing. But I wanted to look at it from my own area of expertise, if you will. So, I'm not a social scientist. I'm not a physicist. I'm not an astronomer, But what I can do is I can write about politics and geopolitics and maybe some military in there and kind of my own mashup. So the story is set a few thousand years in the future. The protagonist is, one of the protagonists. Turns out these things take on a life of their own. His name is Eric, and he is the executor of the gene line of Olsen. And the executors are about 100 or so different gene lines that all execute the will of the Empress, who's immortal and lasts forever. And I have a whole history backstory of how we got from like where we are right now to there, but that's quite a long discussion.
You got to read the book for that one.
You got to read the book, right? And the sequel, which is about half done already. So we're getting there.
Dang, you're already on number 2 before 1's out.
You gotta keep it going. You gotta. So the themes of the book are privilege and that journey of self-reflection. Geopolitically, the themes that I chose to take on are kind of classics. They're, the dichotomy between the stability of an autocratic rule versus the instability of democratic rule, freedom, right? Yeah. And how do you choose between the two, and what is the best and why? So I tried to really keep it in the gray area and let people, as they read, like wrestle with these things internally. Yeah. Because my goal with the book is not to have people talk about the book. I mean, that would be cool too, don't get me wrong, but I want people to talk because of the story. And like, that's, in my opinion, that's a good story.
Yeah. So it reminds me of, I'm guessing you being sci-fi, you've read Ready Player One?
Yes, I have. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That has so many undertones to it. Like, I love that book. It was, to me, because I don't like technology in it, the power of technology is what I don't like. It's so powerful that I don't think we understand how powerful it is. Like what we're doing right now, we couldn't do how many years ago?
2.
This is like
2 years.
Well, I guess 2 years ago. But I mean, they had what was that first thing they had? AOL?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, yeah.
Some sort of digital face-to-face.
Bring me back into the good old days. That's where it all
where you had to like dial in.
Yes.
Like
and the internet showed up in a disc.
Right.
I can still hear the tone in my head.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like the internet's a powerful, powerful thing. And Ready Player One, I feel like exploited that. Like this is, it's not even that unfeasible. Like you find out how many people now are strictly on Facebook for 6 hours a day. And they can jump onto this like digital world at any point in the world, like any point in time, just to escape like the real reality of their world. And I don't know, that's where you go into like, you have the freedom to do it, but is it healthy for overall? So like the undertones in that book are big. And from what you're speaking on your book, it sounds like you're going to have some of those in yours, which I think will spark a conversation.
Yeah, so it's I've had my beta readers and some of the folks that I sent it out to for like early comments. They mentioned it was kind of a cross between Dune and The Expanse. I don't know if you're familiar with either of or both of those.
Dude,
I
I've
think
heard.
The Expanse is a big motion. I said motion picture. It's a series on Amazon, but it's based on a series of books by James S. A. Corey. They're a duo out of New Mexico, but it deals with a lot of the social dynamics of like nearer future of exploitation for resources and minerals versus the right to life and property and living and all that stuff, all set on this great space opera backdrop. It's highly recommended. But the thing that I'm kind of keying in on here is the external narrative arc as well as the internal. So I originally wrote this first book in first person, which turns out it's really hard to do that well, especially for your first novel. So I was like, we're just it's fine. Which I'm glad I did, because now I get to explore a couple of different perspectives and story arcs, and this is feeling much more like a Game of Thrones thing that's like popping out and all kinds of different characters. But
yeah, do you find? And I apologize for interrupting. That first person aspect did you find it hard to kind of like create the characters outside of that one person because you were so focused?
So there's always going to be a piece of the author in every character, right? Because ultimately, they come from the author's brain. The hardest part for me was differentiating their voices. And so, different people, even if they're, from the same socioeconomic class, from the same geographic location, whatever it is, they speak differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting that to come across and that, that's like the piece that makes someone a character and not a caricature. So like, you don't want to just assign a certain dialect to this character because they're from a certain, background.
Yeah.
They need to be an individual. And so when I was writing it in first person, I found that I was kind of empathizing and thinking in terms of that main character so much that it was really hard for me to differentiate the voices for the other characters. But once I switched it over, I'm lucky, I think, because when I start writing, the story just sort of happens in my brain and I record it and the characters talk to each other. I'm like, I didn't see that coming, but okay. Cool.
And do you ever feel like this might be a book that you'll turn into, say, be like a book on tape or something like that? Or do you think it'll just be a written?
Yes, absolutely. So my plan is to have an ebook and a paperback initially, and then hopefully a hardcover at some point. But this lovely booth that I am speaking to you out of is my audiobook recording studio.
Because I
awesome
the books on tape because I am so busy. Like even when I'm doing projects around the house or cooking dinner, I'm like, at least that way there's something that's not the TV on in the background that I can just listen to, just zone out to.
That darn TV. Talking about technology, God.
And talk about a main line of stuff you can't control.
Right.
Yeah. Talk with kids
Funny,
and TVs.
This week, I actually took away all of my son's technology because his report card was less than stellar this last month. He went from doing at home virtual learning, which to him was like, it opened up this whole new amazing scenario for him and helped him learn really, really well. And now that he's back in the school, like in school ground with kids, I feel like he's just so distracted. So he took away all the technology, and just the helpfulness that comes out of him when everything is taken away has been awesome. But yes, technology it's a whole animal all in and of itself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to explain that to my 7-year-old, which is very, very difficult, about how like we're not watching TV an hour before bed because it messes with your sleep cycle. You're just not going to sleep as well, and then you're going to be cranky the next day. Hard to explain to a 7-year-old because they don't really get that, but I try.
When I was letting, so my oldest, we let her do some online games that came from school that are like kind of learning based stuff, and then Codable, which is a kind of a cool kids coding type game. Definitely recommend that. But
was that on Shark Tank?
I don't know. Maybe I don't watch TV.
Oh, there was a game like that.
My
It
son
was super cool.
is coding too. And I asked him the other day if he wanted to get more stuff for coding. He's like, yeah, it's so easy, Mom. I'm like, good. Keep having it be easy. That's
Yeah.
I ran into a free course on coding from I think it was from Harvard, but they did like basically like block coding language.
Yes.
And my wife ran through it and she like coded a little game and in like a couple weeks, and I was like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So but yeah, the what I mentioned to my oldest is like, when you're on the internet, just remember that's like being outside in public.
Yeah.
There's no difference. So like you might find strangers, you might not, like all of this stuff goes on. She goes, oh, okay. I don't know if it like fully, integrated into her psyche, but at least we're having the conversation. So
and I think that's the most important thing, is just having the open line of communication and having those open conversations too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a trust factor. Like, as much as we want to be parents that are like on top of things and no harm will ever happen, like we have to be realizing that they are in public, bad things could happen, but you got to like get either your son or daughter aware of those, and then kind of teach them to self-monitor a little bit, because that's kind of where it builds up. And then if they can self-monitor at 7 or 8, hopefully the self-monitoring at like 21, 22 is a little bit better.
Or even 17, for God's sake. They're still underage then.
I want to skip those steps, because that's going to be problems that are like, those are going to be hard. Those are the hard parent questions. So going back to your book, the one thing that you had said, the character kind of comes from the author's brain. And the cool thing about you is, like, from what you've told us, you've got pilot, you've got military, you've got environmental from your mom's background. You're a father. You do have another career going as well outside of that. You run marathons. Like, you hit so many different facets that you can pull into these people in the writing world. Because I'm not a writer, I am awful. That's why I'm Natasha. I send her chicken scratch and she puts it all together. Do you find that a lot of the authors do have that background, or are some kind of niched? Like, what do you see from that world?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I really think that it comes down to the kind of the subgenre, if you will. Like if you look at hard science fiction, for example, you'll find that like there's a lot of really well-known authors that are really good that are also like astrophysicists, and they can eloquently and beautifully describe the birth process of a star like off the cuff because they just happen to know it. Whereas I'm spending 2 hours on Wikipedia and like trying to like, okay, right, main series G type, red dwarf, more common, got it. Here we go. Right. So like
that was over my head at this point. I either got to call.
I think what you
Wikipedia.
I think what you find the most in authors is the ability and willingness to go learn something just for the sake of knowing it. And whether you want to put an autodidact label on that or whatever, but being able to learn quickly, I think, is probably the thing that has served me the most. And I learned that honestly in the military and pilot training, when they were like, okay, here's your stack of pubs. And at the time, everything was printed out and it was about as tall as I was. And you got to know where everything is. It's like, okay, here we go. But being able to quickly learn information, read fast, figure out what matters to you at the time, and then integrate it into your paradigm, your worldview is kind of where you see a lot of authors who are really successful. They're able to do that, and they're not afraid to go out and like find experts. I'm on Twitter all the time, like just cold adding people like, hey, at so-and-so who I know is a noted biochemist, what do you think about this? Like, and sometimes I get results, sometimes not, but it's all part of it. So,
yeah, I think it's the confidence. It's not so much knowing it, and that's what I'm trying to get my kids to do. If you don't know it, try it. Try it with confidence. Just try it with confidence, because you're going to learn. Either it's going to be right, and you're going to get the background of like, okay, that's how I did it. Now let's get better. Or you do it with confidence and you fail. That's fine. You're 7. So learn and then take your reflection from that. How can I do better next time?
So
But
that is a great point, because that comes out in a lot of the background that I had in design thinking, because I've been through a few military design thinking classes, as well as some stuff out of the Stanford D School, and we used to teach this at the Squadron Officer School. I think they still do. But the idea that failure is not only okay, but is expected.
Yeah.
You know, failure isn't like, if you found one way that didn't work, like, that's still information. That's good. That's one more thing, right? So being comfortable with failure and knowing like how to do that risk reward balance of like, okay, let's go and do this thing. And if we fail, what happens? Oh, well, then you try again. Okay. But if the risk reward is like, if you fail at this, like somebody gets injured or like somebody dies, now you're like, okay, now I know where to like kind of pull back on my risk taking. Right. So, but not being afraid to analyze the situation. And if you have that leeway to fail without consequence, or without, like catastrophic consequence, do it. Throw it out there. I mean, we learn from prototyping. You watch a kid with Legos, right? How many times do they try and put that wall together before they figure it out?
Yep.
Totally.
That's actually, I got Le Glue. Have you heard of Le Glue?
I have not.
There's the little plug here. Christmas present for the boys. It's like Lego. It's glue for Legos.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're building, you put a little dab on, it'll lock it, and then you throw it in water, and it'll all dissolve, so you can get the pieces back.
Oh, I didn't know it dissolved. That's cool.
I was about to say, wasn't this in the Lego movie about like the bringing out the Craggle and how evil the glue is? Because it like.
Oh, I don't know. No, I found it on Shark Tank. Some 7. Was he 9 or 7-year-old invented Le Glue?
Nice.
That's
solid.
Like, kudos to you. And I instantly put in my Amazon shopping cart. But like it is those little, like, it's the tolerance level for failure, I guess. This morning, the 4-year-old wanted orange juice. And I was like, all right, go get orange juice. And he got it and he brought it to me with his cup. And I was like, pour it. And he's like, me? And I was like, yeah. And then I had to get up because I was in the splash zone. So if he does pour it, it's on me. So I got up and went behind him. And I was like, yeah, you're going to get it. It's fine. You just got to pour it and then put the cap on and put it back in the fridge. And I walked behind him and I was just like, is it going to spill? How big is this mess? And I went and got a towel just in case. Like, I was ready. He did fine. But it's those situations where I'm like, I think he can do it. And if he spills, like, he's going to spill. The dogs are going to get some orange juice. We'll clean it up. We'll be fine.
That's honestly...
It's hard for the micromanaging mama over here to be like, it's okay. Hands up. Not going to touch him.
That's the hardest thing for me, I think, is so I cook a lot. I'm the chef of the family, but I do a lot of baking. And baking is fine. It's fun. But like...
That's hard.
There's some precision that has to go into measurements and things, right? And so like baking with the girls is like, I have to really just work on my Zen muscle to just like, that's fine. More flour. Okay.
My son, he loves to make scrambled eggs. And that was like the first thing I ever taught him to make. I taught him to make scrambled eggs when he was 4 years old, knowing good and well that there was going to be scrambled eggs all up and down the sides of the pan, all like in the burners, everywhere. To this day, he's 9 now. He still will ask me, hey, Mom, can I just go make some scrambled eggs? And every time I like say a little prayer, like, it's going to be fine. I'm going to clean up when he's done. It makes him feel like he can provide for himself, and it makes him feel capable.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead. Except if there's those nights that I'm just like, nope, I can't clean up tonight. And then like, that's when I draw the line. I'm like, let's just throw a pizza in. He's like, okay, great.
Miles has learned to use the pizzazz. Like, he'll put the whatever we're having, fries or nuggets or pizza, on the pizzazz. I don't know if you know, it's just like a plug-in. You got to turn a little dial to turn it on.
Never heard of that.
Oh, it's great. You'll never burn a pizza. I got it in college because I couldn't have anything heated in my dorm room, but it was small enough when I'm not using it to tuck it under my bed so that the RA didn't find it.
All right, well, here, listeners, weekly listeners, we will put the link in our show notes for the pizzazz.
Gift idea.
There you go. Very nice.
But we're also we're also going to put your book in. You said you have a website and all that, correct?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Is that like an informational? Is that where you buy it?
So that's my author website. So you can read all of the stuff. Like there's two, I believe, short stories that I've self-published there, and then those have also been picked up at other places, Metastellar mostly. But it's got the book trailer. It's like a movie trailer. They do that nowadays, apparently.
Wow.
So it's got that there. It's got a little bit of background. And then once the Amazon everything goes live, there'll be a link to go check it out on Amazon. It'll be distributed through Ingram Spark as well. So hopefully anywhere that books are sold, you should be able to get it. They may have to order it for you, which, please feel free to order it. It'd be great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also, I forgot to mention this before. Kudos for you doing your own audio when this does go to audiobook. I personally don't like listening to books if the author's not reading it, because I feel like you're more in touch with where you need to emphasize or put influx in just like a simple word to make it hit a little bit more. So I do like that.
Well, I appreciate it. We'll see how my voice acting skills get. It's the classic like DIY mentality where you do it wrong 15 times to do it right once. You're like, all right, cool.
Exactly. But
I
you
did
got
it right
that one
once.
time.
I still record videos to make, like, to give to clients or whatever. I'm recording 85 takes to like compile them all together to make one. So it's like what you used to do with film when you had a camera. You take 85 pictures to get one or two good ones. So just do the thing.
Yeah, perfect.
Sorry, phone cut out there. The other thing I wanted to touch on, because obviously what you're building and the success you've had so far in your life, I mean, that's something to look up to. It's super awesome to see that even with the family life you have, to have the thriving careers. Do you, in your day-to-day, do you do anything to either, like you said, flex your Zen muscles or set yourself up for success? Or do you schedule? Like, how do you break out your day knowing, all right, I'm running a marathon today, then I have to fly somebody across the country and write my book while cook and bake with my daughters and get home all in a day? How do you schedule that out?
Oh man, so it's an ancient technique. It's very secret. Very few people know about it. So I'm going to tell you right now. Don't tell anybody. It's lists.
Oh, yes. Love lists.
And don't get me wrong. Like I was like the equivalent of Cartman when he turns into a nice person. When I started doing lists, where like my soul tried to leave my body for a moment, because I hated lists, because it was like, this is restrictive, and like now I have to do what's on the list and blah blah blah. And if you have that mentality towards list making, that's how it's going to be. Whatever you think, you're right. So being able to look at a list as a tool to get you where you want to be. Step one is knowing where you want to go. Probably a whole podcast on that later on. But but once you know where you want to go, using that list as a tool to structure your time and energy. Honestly, nowadays I will schedule down to the hour if I know I have a busy week coming up, but I take the time to do that on the weekend. So I have the whole week listed out.
Yes.
Of like what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it. And then I also have a bucket of like anytime tasks, where things that don't require a lot of prep to start or like closure, to finish off, where if I find my schedule has shifted and I have a free minute here or there, 15, 20 minutes, take the kids to karate. What are you doing while the kids are doing karate? Oh, well, I guess I could, write a chapter in my book, bring the laptop. And so just having those tasks to kind of like pull off the top. That being said, if the things that you're doing aren't things that you enjoy, then, it's going to be difficult. So the answer isn't only do things you enjoy. That's called hedonism. Different topic. Yeah. The answer is figure out how to enjoy the things that you need to do.
Yeah.
And hopefully some people get to that threshold, because I feel like a lot of people can do something for a job. I'm just framing it in the reference of a job. You can go to a job, you can get your paycheck, you can go through the motions, but it doesn't really fulfill you. So now when your manager says like, hey, you got to step up and do a little bit more, or you got to show us a little bit more, and you're already not there mentally, that's when I feel like that list comes in where you're like, I don't even want to follow the list. But
Mhm.
the list I have for myself, like I need them, because like there's no way I can go through my day without writing stuff down. Otherwise, it's so clogged in my head, and I'm even more scatterbrained than I already am. So if I know, don't laugh, Natasha. Uh, if I know I have to go to Menards, I can't remember the 20 items I need to buy. So I write them on my list. So all I remember is I have to go to Menards today. When I
Yeah.
walk in Menards, I pull up my list and I'm like, okay, these are the things I need. Because if I kept all that stuff in my head, I think I'd go pretty crazy.
If you look at my
Yeah.
phone, like I have lists on top of lists, probably lists within lists too, because like you just even I need to keep track of everything I'm making for dinner every day of the week. I need to keep track of the stuff that I forgot the grocery store, but dang it, I just remembered I need to get it. Oh, but then there's projects around the house that we need to do. Oh, there's stuff Riley needs from for school. So there's like there's so much stuff going on in my head every single day of the week. I don't know how I
Mhm.
would be able to do it if I didn't utilize lists.
Honestly, the thing that helped me the most to transition from like using the list effectively was to make the list on my Google Calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, like there's a time slot that is like associated with everything. So you have to think about when you're going to do it, not just what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a phenomenon that came up that basically says in a nutshell, what you need to get done is going to get done in the time that you allot it to get done in. So if you give yourself an hour to do it, you're going to get it done in an hour if you're hard on those times.
Mhm.
That's a struggle for me because I'm like, I'm going to do it for an hour, but then I'm like somewhat close. I'm like, well, then I'm already set up. I'll just do this for another half hour. But now I'm off schedule. Are you hard on your times? Can you shift around? Do you leave some flex where I didn't get to it, but I'm gonna move to my afternoon or to tomorrow?
So honestly, it's task triage at that point. You know, if I go over, what am I not doing today? Because what I'm not going to do, and I got into a bad spiral on this for a while, where I would just like add more things on to the end of the day, to the point where I was like working right up to the last possible second that I could leave work to go and pick up my kids just before daycare closed to get home with
Oh,
just enough time to make dinner. And then they could get into the bed, and then like we have 5 minutes to read a book, and then it's lights out, and then I have to go back to doing the things that I didn't get done during the day. And it was not good. So giving yourself the opportunity to not do stuff and knowing what is okay to not do is critical. I've heard the metaphor of a rubber ball versus a glass ball. If you're juggling, you know, don't drop the
Yeah,
glass ball, but you can drop the rubber one. So
yeah.
that helps people sometimes. But just knowing what's okay to be like, I'm just not going to get to this, and that's fine.
I
I will
think that's
fold the
your third
laundry
book.
tomorrow.
I think that's your third book topic because I think a lot of people,
struggle.
including myself, I'll admit it, kind of
Mhm.
struggle with that idea. Like they don't want to drop any ball, so they just like keep working and keep working until it gets done.
Yep. And then you're working 100 hours a week, and you have gray hair when you're 25, and it just doesn't go well.
At least mine didn't come until I was 30, so
It's
that's good.
distinguished. It's distinguished.
Right,
I still don't
right,
have
right.
any yet. Pizza.
Yeah.
It's the one thing I can win on.
The no gray hair.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we had so much fun talking with you today. I was wondering if you'd be willing to come back on and really kind of talk about your renovation or your home renovation projects with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Everything from drywall to paint, interior and exterior. I didn't do the roof, but I went through a roofing situation. So there's that. What else? I've got
We
siding to do,
we could really
electrical.
get into the drywall stuff because right now I am skim coating all the walls in my house and
Ooh, I'm
yeah.
so sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I really, really do. But it's okay because the how it looked from the textured walls before, I think you can still see this one in the background, to
Mhm.
the smoothness of the thin coat of the skim coated walls now. Oh my God. It's like angels have opened the heavens. They're shining on me. The angels are singing. So it's fine.
Yep, I had the '80s popcorn ceiling in the whole house here, and the secret to getting popcorn ceiling off without too much effort is to pay somebody else to do it.
Oh, we put
That's the ticket.
shiplap. We put shiplap up on our ceilings because our ceilings were so bad. So there's that.
Yeah.
That's another.
That popcorn stuff, I don't know in your location, but around here we'll have like asbestos in it.
Ooh.
Depends on the age. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You gotta watch out for that. And if it's been painted, if some, DIYer has been like, oh, we'll just paint over it, it'll be fine. Like, that's not a good plan. It does not come off very well.
Yeah.
So
And that's
luckily we were, it was just vanilla, no asbestos, and no paint. So
well, that's good.
sprayed some water on it, scrape it off, and then I just ended up doing all the mudding and sanding for the
Okay.
ceiling,
Yes.
which is great.
So you feel my pain. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great to have you back on. One, to talk about your DIY stuff and what you learned through that process, because that just adds another, I don't know, like ring to your or medal to your trophy case, I guess, of things you've gone to. But also, like, I feel you might have been holding some excitement back from the book because it's not released yet. So after that release date, I think it'd be cool to have you back on. I'm obviously gonna buy your book. I'm gonna read it so we can actually go in and talk more about that.
Awesome. Yeah, it's called Steel in the Blood. I'm super excited to have it out. And I am planning on doing a virtual launch party. So we'll do that Facebook Live event. I have a Facebook page as well. It's just my name, so very easy to find. I'm the only NT Narbutovskih on there.
And as a side note, I have an investment property in the city in Oregon that has a UFO festival in it every year. So there's
solid.
That's good. How I'm contributing to your
the sci-fi theme.
Yeah, to your sci-fi theme.
Perfect. I'll send you some flyers. It'll be great.
Love it.
Well, that's cool. What is obviously your Facebook page where they're going to do a live launch? Is there a best way to contact you? Because we're just going to put all the information in the show notes. Your website, your Facebook page, any contact information.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website has links to all my social media handles on there. So I took a brief dip of my toes into the TikTok waters and then promptly lost my account information. So I'm still working on recovering that. Oh, no. But I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I have Instagram. If you're looking for awesome book content on Instagram, it's mostly pictures of food. So enjoy that.
Hey.
But right. But yeah, definitely the website is the best way to get a hold of me. And there's a contact me page on there. And you can always email me at nick@narbutov.com.
Awesome.
Well, I appreciate your time. Man, fascinating person. Love what you're doing. Excited to read this book and then have you back on and kind of talk about those undertones you were alluding to.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. Keep it up. Enjoy the little baby at home.
Absolutely. I'm going to head over there and check in with her right now. So
yeah. Perfect. Give her all the struggles.
Will do.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Good weekend.
Have a good weekend. See ya. Thank you very much.
Bye.